when someone says, "Oh, you fancy coming to the pub for one?" You're never going for one, are you? No. Let's be honest. I think I heard Liam Gallagher say, "I'm not going for one. I'm going for thousands or whatever." Like if we're gonna do it, we're doing it. That was my attitude towards drinking. It was I didn't see the point in one, because what sort of conversation you're gonna have with one beer? I was drinking to get drunk, and then we go into lockdown. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And the industry that I was in completely closed as well. So I kind of felt like I lost my purpose. I'm a very social person. I like being around people. So I found comfort in drinking. But that drinking wasn't enough. So admittedly, and it's something I've not really been open with before, but that would lead to coke use. The saddest part is I'd be doing it on my own, so we'd be doing these Zoom quizzes. I would, nip into the garage to, "Hey lads, I'm going to go grab a beer. Just hold on 1 second." And then I would, have a little bump and then come back. And then there would be people falling asleep on camera because I could just keep going. Yeah. What happens when the quiz is over, when that Zoom party is over? It was such a sad, because it felt like you were in a party, then all of a sudden you close it, it's gone. Silence. It's just you and your own thoughts. It's a very sad and lonely place for me. And I don't think many of my family realised that at the time.
I think there's a danger that people think you've got to hit this kind of stereotypical rock bottom in order to make a change to look at your relationship with alcohol or drugs. And I think that's quite damaging as a mindset. At any point on that journey, you can turn around and go, "This isn't working for me." I mean, the stats are actually that most people that are in sobriety weren't drinking every day. In fact, they were more likely to be a binge drinker. So if you're sober, your drinking history is more likely to be that you were a binge drinker rather than someone that drank every day like I did. So actually your story is more common than mine.
Yeah, 100%.
If you hadn't have stopped drinking and you were still drinking, what do you think your life would look like today?
God forbid. If I was to have a sip now and carry on the way I was, it would just be back to square one. I don't know if me and my wife would be together, as much as I think we've got an extremely strong relationship. In my relationship with food is, I've looked into that and delved into that because I knew it wasn't just booze. I was probably increasing my weight, maybe just a stone a year. I'd probably be over 20 stone now. I know it sounds drastic, but death, or at least implications of health implications that would lead to an earlier death.
Welcome to School of Rock Bottom with Oliver Mason. I'm an actor, a voiceover artist and a recovery coach who's been sober 10 years. And I know firsthand that rock bottom moments can be the greatest teacher and the springboard for a beautiful life. And as you know, I interview fellow creatives and all inspiring people that have hit rock bottom, survived and thrived. This is a podcast of hope and how to get out of the darkness into the light. And that's why I'm so excited today, because I've got the heroic Henry Beercock.
Hello.
In the studio. How you doing, Henry?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm really, really well. Thanks so much for coming all the way from Hull to see me today.
Yeah, a bit of a trek, yeah.
Really, really appreciate that.
That's all right.
Now, before we dive into all of this amazing stuff, a quick shout out to today's sponsors of this episode, Gavin Sisters. Head to the show notes now for 10% off their funky coffee and wellness retreats. Right. If you don't know who Henry is, shame on you, you will do now. So a little quick bio, and then we're going to dive straight into all the good stuff. So today's guest is Henry Beercock. Yeah, I did say that right, didn't I? It's a brilliant name, Henry Beercock. I love that. A man who spent nearly 2 decades caught in a cycle of binge drinking, dangerous situations, and risky choices. After 17 years in a stable career, Henry made a radical decision to walk away and completely rebuild his life. In just 2 years, he lost 7 stone, gone fully vegan alongside his wife, and created a thriving alcohol-free community in Hull called Alco-Hull-Free. That's brilliant. Alco-Hull-Free, what a brilliant name. He even started crafting his own alcohol-free beer, pushing boundaries around what sobriety can look like. Henry's story isn't just about giving up booze. It's about finding real purpose, challenging stigma, and showing that life without alcohol can be full of passion, connection, and fun, even when it means losing old friendships. He's open about the chaos of his past and what sobriety has taught him. This conversation will change how you think about sobriety and the choices we make. Wow, what an intro that is.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thanks.
How long have you been sober now, Henry?
So my last drink that I had was in October 2023.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. I've warned you how I start the podcast every week.
Yes.
And that is to pick a rock bottom moment of your choosing. And from there, we're going to get into the hope, the joy, the light, and the recovery.
I guess the thing that really stands out for me was it was one day my wife came downstairs and I noticed she wasn't getting much sleep. She kept having to go through to the next room, and we hadn't been we just recently got married. Been married maybe a few months and stuff, and she came down and she just looked tired. She looked, there was something on her mind, and obviously we were sleeping apart at this point. And she just said to me, she was like, I don't know if I can carry on. And I went, what do you mean? She went, we're living apart. We're staying in separate rooms. And I was like, well, have you tried your earplugs and whatever? And basically the problem was when I would drink, and because I was so overweight, I would snore to the point where she just couldn't sleep, and she was getting styes under her eyes. She was literally having, if she was lucky, 1 or 2 hours sleep. And here I am, laid on my back, snoring my head off. And I tried certain things, to try and make it better. But it wasn't, when I realized this isn't about me now. This isn't about my health. This isn't about anything else. This is about us and about her. And I'm bringing her into this. And, I didn't want to lose her. So I said, okay, I'll get help. And that help was me speaking to a specialist about my snoring, about my issues I was having, and hoping that there would be some magic formula. I considered surgery because the idea of giving up everything else was so scary. So when I get in there, this guy takes one look at me and goes, you have not got sleep apnea. You've got no problems whatsoever. He went, it's all around your neck. The issue you've got is you're overweight.
Right.
And he was really blunt, really matter of fact with it. And he said, and this will be exaggerated when you drink, when you smoke, which I did. I was a heavy smoker, especially vaping, which again, I think you'll be able to relate. It just sits really heavy on your throat. And it wasn't just an overnight thing. I knew this was a problem, but it took me months and months to realize. But basically my rock bottom was my fear of losing my wife. And I wasn't going to let my weight and my drinking habits and my smoking habits get in the way of that. So I think that was the wake-up call for me to make sure and make me realize I need to change.
Absolutely. We were chatting over a coffee, weren't we, about the impact that lockdown had on you. And I know you sort of referred to yourself in these show notes as a binge drinker, sort of the classic kind of, would you say you were the kind of classic stereotypical kind of British boozer, or was it a bit more than that? It sounds to me during lockdown in particular that it got really heavy and quite out of hand at times.
Yeah. I mean, I was your typical after work Friday night drinker. And on Saturday, depending obviously how I was feeling, I might, I'd probably carry on into the next night if there was something going on. I wasn't a go to the pub casually on a Monday, Tuesday night, unless there was a quiz or something, or it just so happens to be after work. So it wasn't really much midweek. It was more of a means to escape during the week. But when it came to lockdown, different story, because I feel drinking was so celebrated then. We were all bored. And if you remember, it was so hot. And what better to, when you sat in the garden, have a beer. Have a beer, smoke some cigs, whatever. So I just recently split up with my ex-fiance at that point in January 2020. So you can imagine I had a couple of months where I was free, single, ready to mingle. And then we go into lockdown. And I didn't know what to do with myself, and the industry that I was in completely closed as well. So I kind of felt like I lost my purpose. I'm a very social person. I like being around people. So I found comfort in drinking, but that drinking wasn't enough. So admittedly, and it's something I've not really been open with before, but that would lead to coke use. And so it was getting to the point where the saddest part is I'd be doing it on my own, so we'd be doing these Zoom quizzes. I would, nip into the garage to, hey, lads, I'm going to go grab a beer. Just hold on 1 second. And then I would, have a little bump and then come back. And then there would be people falling asleep on camera because I could just keep going.
Yeah.
What happens when the quiz is over, when that Zoom party is over? You close the laptop, all your cans, your tinnies are all there. You pot with a load of tab ends, your cigs are all there. It was such a sad, because it felt like you were in a party, then all of a sudden you close it, it's gone. Silence. It's just you and your own thoughts. I'd just be sat there on a laptop or not knowing what to do with myself, really. And it was a sad and lonely existence, really, because I couldn't see anyone. I was living in the house on my own. I felt like I had no purpose. So growing up, I dabbled, with regards to drug use, etc. Like most young people, they experiment, if that be with coke, if that be with MDMA, etc. If I would be going to clubs and I would try it. So I'm not averse to that sort of, well, that experience, whatever, like I can relate to it. However, my story comes in sort of two parts. That was me experimenting when I guess I was younger, to then my sobriety in the last couple of years. So I kind of see it as completely two completely different lives, really.
Sounds like lockdown and using cocaine during lockdown as well sort of accelerated your drinking, or is that a bit too simple?
No, completely. Because I don't know if you remember. Well, again, you were sober by that point, weren't you?
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah.
So
thank God. I think it would. I think it would have killed me when I heard Boris Johnson say we're going into lockdown. I just heard lock-in. That's what I heard. I didn't hear lockdown.
Yeah.
I went. He just said lock-in. That's a lock. Like my brain would have gone. I'm having a huge lock-in, and then drinking beers, going save the NHS. I'm doing my bit.
But make sure you clap on a Thursday.
And make sure I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't have cared about what was happening with COVID. Of course I would have done, but I would have seen it as doing my duty, getting absolutely mullered at home.
I mean, the group chats where people were really celebrating, and there were these sort of challenges that would come around. You would challenge someone to down a drink, and it would be like a shit mix sort of thing. So it would be a concoction of all these other things, and you would down them to go that one up. Yeah. And people were doing all these crazy things. And I remember one person in the group chat, it was like, oh, you should have heard my recycling bin. You could hear it from a mile off, just clinking and whatever. And again, it was like, everyone was like, yeah, well, I've just got this and I've got that. And it was really celebrated. It was like, I hate to say the word, but it was kind of like cool. The more you drank and the more you let loose in your own home.
Yeah.
It was a really, really strange and weird time, and a very sad and lonely place for me. And I don't think many of my family realised that at the time.
Yeah. Any kind of like problems you were having with your drinking, it sounds like you could kind of keep under the surface, but then COVID was like the perfect storm where it was just like, now it's really going to rear its ugly head. I know there's a lot of people in the rehabs I work in. Often they'll say that was the period of time where things really spiked. I was drinking a bit heavy and things were a little bit XYZ, but actually it was COVID that really spiked everything. So I think so many people are going to relate to that. And it's interesting with the rock bottom, isn't it? Because we were talking about this off air. A lot of people think rock bottom is this really super dramatic moment. I think you said over a coffee, sort of waking up with a bottle of vodka, passed out, or living in a skip. And of course that can happen.
Living in a skip.
Living in a skip. I actually know someone in recovery that happened to, believe it or not. He's now a very successful businessman. It's quite a story. Okay. It's quite a story. But it can be an accumulation of all these micro moments. And I think it's the moment where you can't ignore the pain anymore. And it sounds to me that, with the danger of your relationship coming to an end, that was kind of the surge you needed, to go in a different way. Binge drinking is an interesting term, isn't it? I mean, according to the NHS, it's 8 units for men and 6 for women, so like a pint of Stella, a 5% beer. So anything over 3 pints, even 3 pints in a sip, is a binge for a man, and anything over 2 pints for a woman. But I'm guessing you're saying a bit more than that, right?
Definitely more than 3 pints. That's just a casual after work sort of. Because the thing is, you never go when someone says, "Oh, you fancy coming to the pub for one?" You're never going for one, are you? No. Let's be honest. I think I heard Liam Gallagher say, "I'm not going for one. I'm going for thousands or whatever." Like if we're gonna do it, we're doing it. And it was very much that was my attitude towards drinking. It was, I didn't see the point in one, because what sort of conversation you're going to have with one beer? Yeah. It'd be, you drink it and then, again, at the rate you sort of drink as well. So no, I mean, three beers, I mean, that's rookie numbers as far as what I was doing. And I'm not claiming to be the biggest drinker out there, or at least I was. However, when I'm drinking, I was drinking to get drunk. I didn't see the point of just doing it socially, because something I was always aware of, even though I was a big person, was the fact it was wasted calories. So I was always trying to diet. There was always in the back of my mind, well, these pints are X amount of calories, so just be mindful of that. So I would just see, if I wasn't getting drunk, which would be my sort of excuse to, I don't need to worry about it because I'm getting drunk and it's a special event, I didn't see the point of drinking in between.
Yeah, I understand. I think it's really important to talk about the reasons why people get sober, because, I think there's a danger that people think you've got to hit this kind of stereotypical rock bottom in order to make a change, to look at your relationship with alcohol or drugs. And I think that's quite damaging as a mindset. At any point on that journey, you can turn around and go, this isn't working for me. And I think the stereotype around what an alcoholic looks like kind of stops a lot of people looking at that relationship with alcohol. I mean, the stats are actually that most people that are in sobriety weren't drinking every day. In fact, they were more likely to be a binge drinker. So if you're sober, your drinking history is more likely to be that you were a binge drinker rather than someone that drank every day like I did. So actually your story is more common than mine.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
I mean, bearing in mind the community that I've created in my local area, I'm finding there's the odd few that have, gone through the system, etc., and gone to rehab, but most of them just had enough. And I think with regards to, I don't think, and you will have seen a shift in the last few years. If you had said to me, let's just use as an example. Let's say someone said to me, "Oh, have you heard about Tracy? She's, either she stopped drinking or she's gone to rehab." You'd be thinking, "Oh, I'm not sure if I want Tracy around here. Like, is she all right?" Or like, I don't know. Let's say you were hiring her for a business or something. It would plant a seed of doubt in your mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a shame because if anything, I actually respect them more for realizing it was a problem and bettering themselves, as opposed to thinking it's okay to use this poison as a means to escape. So it's how it's so normalized, whereas the people trying to be better are seen as the, not the bad people, but like the odd ones out.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing having sober voices like yourself that could see where it was headed and were able to rein it in. I mean, that might not be right, what I've just said.
100%.
Unfortunately, I was the sort of type of drink that was unable to do that. But that doesn't mean that that's not a valid experience, because if you're able to do that, that is the best way to do it. Unfortunately, I just didn't seem to have that that brain that was able to do it.
Do you live in the city? Do you live in like London?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I guess the likelihood is as well. I think the drinking culture in here, big city life, the city that never sleeps, etc. I can imagine I would have struggled.
Yeah.
But bear in mind when I live in a village, a quiet little Yorkshire village, etc. I think it is easier to sort of, I would have to go into town and that would be a 15, 20-minute taxi ride or something. So I think for you, where all you got to do is hop on a tube or just go down to the road and you've got numerous pubs, numerous places. So I do think being in a city, I think I would struggle. So I think my location probably helped.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's really weird because I've always thought the opposite for myself. I always thought if I went to a little village, I'd be more vulnerable to like really get on it. But it's interesting, isn't it? It's maybe it's addiction's way of sort of presenting an alternative life and an alternative
what
story.
Could have been or something.
What could have been.
Yeah.
Talking about what could have been, if you hadn't have stopped drinking and you were still drinking, what do you think your life would look like today?
God forbid, but I don't know if me and my wife would be together, as much as I think we've got an extremely strong relationship. I love her to death. So, however, if she wasn't sleeping and it was really getting to the point where I was valuing drinking and smoking ahead of her, then you got to imagine where does she see herself in this relationship if I'm valuing that over her? And my weight would have I was probably increasing my weight maybe just a stone a year. So if you can imagine, my heaviest in 2023 was I think it was 18 stone, so I'd probably be over 20 stone now, and I'm only short. I can't remember last time I checked, but I think I'm like 5'6.5", something like that. So I'm relatively short. So you can imagine, obviously, a lot wider in that sense. Hence the reason why I'm finally able to wear stripes.
I mean, it is a massive glow up, if I can call it a glow up, because I've seen your photos on your Instagram. You look very different. Actually.
Yeah, no, there's a lot's changed, but I guess if I was to look at my life, would be health implications, probably diabetes, issues with injuries. I mean, I always had back problems. I was always at the chiropractor because in my job, I was sat down a lot, sat driving. I was always on the road. So I was having issues. And again, I wouldn't move. I wouldn't do any forms of exercise. I literally had a static job and it was a sales role. So I'd go into clients' houses, etc. And that would be my form of exercise, is going up a couple of flights of stairs. So really, if I hadn't have stopped, I don't think drugs would have become a problem because I'd already knocked that on the head. But I would say just health, my relationship with food, and that's another thing. My relationship with food is I've looked into that and delved into that because I knew it wasn't just booze. It was okay. Well, if I get rid of this, you hear about it when people go through sobriety, they get the sugar cravings. They want something sweet. So therefore, not everyone who goes sober loses a load of weight, but they expect to. When people do dry Jan, it's like I've done dry Jan for 31 days or however long it is, and they just go, why have I not lost any weight?
Yeah,
because they've substituted it with other things.
Yeah.
So I generally think it would either be, I know it sounds drastic, but death or at least health implications that would lead to an earlier death.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well because you're a huge advocate for alcohol-free beer, and I think you've actually got something in the works, right?
It's in the works, yeah. And it's something I'm passionate about. And you can imagine, as you introduced me with the surname Beercock, it's
brilliant. I love it.
I mean,
it's amazing.
You can imagine growing up. I mean, a lot of people. No, it was. If anything, it was a talking point. I loved it. I'm so proud of it.
I just love the fact you've got the word beer in there.
Yeah.
That's all I'm in. I'm like, wow, his surname says beer in it. That's
incredible. Well, that's it. And it's kind of it's funny now I'm sober, so it's like, okay, well, how do I own that? So so really, it made sense, but it's something that's helped me with regards to finding my purpose because I wasn't sure what route I kind of wanted to go down. I left a career. I didn't really kind of know what it is that I was going to do. And finding myself in this alcohol-free beer world and basically commentating about it. And I started doing it because a lot of my group, my alcohol-free group, they were sending me like, oh, have you tried this? Or has anyone got any recommendations for this? So I thought, okay, well, I've got an audience here. Every time I try something, or at least the odd few that I do like, I will tell them about it and I'll get it out there, and then it will help promote the message with these other small breweries as well, because I like to focus on the local kind of breweries, the craft style, as opposed to the big supermarket stuff if I can. But so really, then I thought, okay, well, I'm building up this knowledge. I'm building up this kind of I would say fan base in this realm. Yeah, and it's something I'm really intrigued about, and something that it sort of gets me pumped, and I haven't had that feeling in a very long time. Yeah. So, but it's an interesting one with alcohol-free beer because it's not going to necessarily be for everyone. And,
right. Well, I think some people, particularly fans of the show who's been following it for a long time, are going to know that I've got some interesting views around alcohol-free beer. When I say interesting, so I'm not against alcohol-free beer at all. In fact, particularly in this sober curious space, grey area drinking, heavy drinking, and even maybe sort of with a mild alcohol use disorder, they're incredibly positive. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt about that. I think where I struggle, there was a review in 2023. So I'm just going to quote something here. It says, a 2023 systematic review found that alcohol-free and low-alcohol beers can trigger cravings, especially in people with severe alcohol dependence. The stronger someone's history with alcohol, the higher the risk that even non-alcoholic beer can lead to relapse. Now, I just wondered if you agree with that statement, or just how you sit with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily sit on the fence about it. I'm no expert in that sense, and I would never dream of telling people, oh, that's a load of nonsense. I mean, personally, I think it's the way it's marketed. So I'm not looking at when it comes to selling mine, or at least when it comes to me buying a beer. Yeah. Now I'm not looking at it filling a void. Really, I much prefer the taste of beer now as opposed to when I did before, because before I wanted it was serving a purpose. It was there to get me drunk. I would just look at the price. Yeah. I would just look at the price of a pint and go, right, I'll go for that one then, because I'm getting pissed. Whereas now I want to dabble in the different flavors and the different hops, etc. So I think if someone's looking at it filling that void, it ain't going to work. Yeah. And if anything, it may trigger if they are unfortunately that far gone. However, it's more, I'm looking at it for the grey area drinkers. That there's nothing better for me when you go into a pub and they've got an alcohol-free on draft. It's that ceremonious pint, that sort of that ritual of I've got a pint here, and it's not about fitting in, because for me personally, I don't think there's a prouder moment to sit there with a pint glass. And I want people to know this is a zero beer because I want to normalize it. Whereas a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to fit in, so I kind of want to hide behind a normal pint glass." I'm like, no, shout the fact that you're drinking this an alcohol-free beer and normalize it that way. I don't want it to.
We were talking about this. Sorry to interrupt, weren't we? Over a coffee, you were saying that sometimes in a pub when they pour the alcohol-free beer, it will come in a 0% glass. And I think someone was saying, actually, I don't want everyone to know it's 0%. Whereas actually, you like having the glass.
It. Yeah. If anything, I feel like they've gone that step further to make me feel included. It's like, oh, by the way, the brewery felt it was, right to give you this glass.
Yeah.
And I get it. Some people might go, well, bear in mind, I'm very open about it. Whereas some people might be sort of sober curious and they might just be driving or whatever. So they don't want to highlight the fact they're not drinking booze. But I think alcohol-free, going back to your question, it serves a purpose for people who are pregnant, who are designated drivers, who just fancy the taste, but don't necessarily. They might have something in the next morning or something. So I think what they call it blue label. So when you go to a supermarket and you see it blue label, it's like alcohol-free drinks without the hangover. It's like, no, I don't want it to be sold as that. As long as the liquid is good enough, it doesn't matter if it's got alcohol in it or not. It's how much value do you put on ethanol at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And that's it. So if these people who are triggered by it, then God forbid if I was selling my product when that day does come and I found that it was becoming a problem, my profits are not worth all of these people falling off the wagon. You know? So you would take a view on that. However, it's probably not for them. And I would be very mindful of the fact I'm not selling this to make it a cure. Drink this, you will become sober. It's more, do you like beer? If so, I've got this beer over here that tastes great. It doesn't matter if it's got alcohol in it or not as far as the message is concerned.
Yeah.
To obviously those sober or sober curious.
I mean, that's really well answered and huge respect for that answer as well. I mean, I think also I have to be humble and look at the situation fully in the round. I think it's important, maybe, Henry, to explain as well my lens, because I had such chronic, severe alcoholism at the end, hospitalized so many times, multiple relapses, suicide attempts, many near-death experiences. I've got a very sort of unusual, well, maybe not unusual, but a specific lens of how my drinking ended up, which is definitely very severe. And then I'm working in rehabs where it tends to be severe. So my lens of the sober crowd is quite narrow. My aperture is quite specific. I'm usually hanging around with people that are severe chronic addiction. But if we pan out a second and look at all the people that are sober, they're probably in the minority. I mean, I think the sober curious movement, the grade, and all the other areas probably far outweigh that demographic. I don't know that for sure, but I would imagine. So actually, alcohol-free beer from a panoramic point of view is going to help the vast majority of people that are not drinking in 2025.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's helped me, and it hasn't helped me. Meaning, I was about to fall off, and if it wasn't for this beer, I would have started drinking again. It's not that at all.
Yeah,
it's more. I like the taste of beer. It's a bit like I always liken it to vegan. My vegan diet, so just to shoehorn that in there. But I think the way I kind of look at the vegan side and either the alcohol-free side of it, I think it sort of comes hand in hand, really, because it's, in a way, let's say when people go, why do you want it to look like meat, like a burger? Why do you want it to emulate meat? It's like, I like the taste of meat.
Sure.
I love, and I like the taste of beer. And so
I love those Beyond Burgers. I think they taste amazing.
Exactly. So I like that. However, what I don't like is what happens beyond that, if you will, excuse the pun. But so in a way, it's like, I like beer. And but as far as I don't like alcohol. So it's the sort of the message there. And so having done it both together, I kind of see the world without getting all tinfoil hat about it, but I see the world in a completely different way now because of the messages we've sort of been told around the normalizing of, farming, etc. And again, normalizing, you go into a supermarket with regards to booze and the booze aisles, around Christmas, Father's Day, any celebration, Valentine's, it's booze, 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 booze.
Yeah.
It's booze equals celebration.
Yeah.
And so it's how these supermarkets and companies are pushing it to us. And so I look at, as I said, I look at them both very, very in the same category, really.
And what would you attribute sort of going sober and the weight loss as well? I mean, it sounds like a real shift in mindset. I mean, on one hand, you could say it's kind of like a story of sort of willpower and determination. The bit that's interesting, though, for me in that is, I think on one level that's probably true. I'll let you answer that. But also the fact that you've really found a new purpose, and this movement, Alco-Hull-Free, it sounds like, yeah, it is mindset and willpower and all of that, but also about finding a greater purpose and a connection to something, not something greater in a spiritual sense, but a greater purpose that isn't just about Henry.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, so I did some work on myself with regards to therapy. I spoke to like a coach, a life coach as well, because I was keen on knowing what my purpose was.
Yeah.
So you can imagine in my old industry, it was a family business. Yeah. And I got in out straight from school. I was straight in there. So I never had an opportunity to be myself. I never got an opportunity to be Henry. It was always Henry of this company. So my therapist basically said, look, before you're anyone's son, uncle, nephew, etc., you have to be your own person. It sounds like you haven't had an opportunity to be that. Right, so what makes you you? Yeah. And at the time I didn't know, and I had to find out. So I had to leave this business, and I was always in the process. I was already in the process of leaving it at this point. Having left the business, and I took myself away for a few weeks to like a holistic fitness retreat. It wasn't super kumbaya up in the hills anywhere. It was very much a cheap resort that had some fitness classes and a plant-based sort of cafe. And that kind of dipped my toe in with regards to plant-based food. But I went there, and again, no one knew who I was. No one knew anything about my history or anything like that. So again, for the first time, I was kind of like, they just knew me as Henry. And I was like, okay, this feels right. And I had no idea what, they were like, oh, well, what is it you're going to do? I'm like, I don't know yet. But I'm just going to keep following the energy, following my purpose. And again, going back to purpose, I didn't know what my purpose was. So I was like, I need to try and nail this down. So I spoke to a coach, and this guy I knew from years ago, etc. And he kept just sort of, when I did Dry Jan or Sober October, he was like, oh, great, sobriety is amazing, keep at it, And I was like, yeah, whatever, mate. I'm only doing it for a month. See you later. Right. And then he just sort of kept planting seeds. I was like, you know what? I'll speak to him. So I spoke to him, and we had a few sessions, and it was all about purpose. And basically, once we sort of narrowed it down, and there were so many things you would go through, it would say, pick out of these 200 words, pick the words that resonate with you. So go through that, go through this, and then the next session would be, okay, well. And then it would be, let's dissect these words and let's narrow it down to 5. And then, so it actually got down to, okay, well, what's your purpose? And it was to have sort of genuine interactions with people, to help people, etc. I can't remember the exact term, but I didn't know how that looked. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I need to get into coaching. Yeah. And then I dabbled, etc. And it just didn't feel quite right. I thought, I want to be able to do it in a way that I'm not necessarily charging people, but I can bring people closer together. And that's when I realized Alco-Hull-Free, there was nothing in my local area where it normalized people being able to go to certain establishments and have a drink and be surrounded by like-minded people. There was none of that. And so I used to I've started doing videos of highlighting certain places, showcasing during Dry Jan what alcohol-free options they've got. Right. So then it was like, because during Dry January, a lot of hospitality struggle. No one's going out. They rather than buy alcohol-free beers, they would rather sustain than just stay inside. So I'm just sort of saying, still come out. There's a lot of amazing venues here, and look what you can have. And this is what they've got. It might be games, it might be amazing food deals, etc. So I started doing that to help the local hospitality scene because I had the time, and it made me feel good, and it dipped my toe into sort of content creation as well, and it spread that message and again to normalize it.
Are you got to the point yet where you're having like sober meetups, or is that yeah oh amazing?
So like sober socials, we have walk and talks, we did bowling, so I've got one, it's like a sober social, it's like a pizza, games night, etc. But there's like a boozeless, bottomless brunch. Brilliant. So again, normalizing that, because people just think bottomless brunch. Well, I can't go to that because what do you think of bottomless brunch? Get your money's worth. Yeah. Whereas like, no, it's different. We're just trying different drinks. And I want to do an alcohol-free wine tasting. So by the time this has come out, I'd like to think I've done all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's really,
I mean, just to warn you, I'm a dirty southerner, you know, and so anything north of Watford, I assume is up north. So when I've got a stereotypical kind of image in my head in Hull of these sort of like, you know, burly northerners, you know, getting the beers in, very sort of boozy culture.
Yeah.
Have I got that right? Is it boozy Hull?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you're going against the grain in my stereotypical view of what the scene is in Hull around alcohol.
It's very stereotypical, but you are a southerner, so
I told you I'm a dirty southerner as well. So bloody clueless.
I would say in certain areas, you've got to think, you know, whereas where I'm from, admittedly, you know, I'm from, as I said, a village just outside of Hull, but I tend to try and focus more in the city centre because it's a central hub where it's more accessible for everyone. So if you actually consider that and people's drinking habits, etc., then I would say it's very much a boozy culture. But again, they're struggling. You know, the city centre, as most city centres. I mean, London's a different kettle of fish, but the high street is struggling now. So what they're sort of replacing with is bars, restaurants, and even they're struggling. So it's tough. Yeah. It really is. And rather than, I would love for these old, beautiful pubs, and Hull still has some. I mean, you've got to imagine during the war we were heavily bombed. So you've got to think, with Hull, you've got some beautiful old character buildings, some of the most stunning pubs, and I don't want to not go into them because I don't drink anymore. So if they can provide me with options and an inclusive, safe space for me to bring some pals, then I would happily spend my money. Yeah. But when I go in there and they've only got Beck's Blue or some garbage drink that they've literally gone for again, ticking boxes.
The only one I ever tried was right back in the day was a Kestrel. I think that was the only. Was it Kestrel?
Yeah. I think, but again, if that's your experience of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was still drinking at the time. My dad was spiking me with these zero beers.
Spike.
I don't know, that's hilarious. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously being a bit sarcastic there.
Yeah.
But he was trying to get me off the alcohol and was like basically giving me a 0% Kestrel. And we're going back a lot of years.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? You know,
I'm sure you can take the difference. And that's why when people do dry jam, they all of a sudden they go, you know, I've got pictures of me the first time I did dry jam, 2014. Yeah. And I've got a picture of me doing it. And basically, you can see the timestamp. I've got a pint in my hand, and it's at quarter past midnight. So you can see, like, I'm celebrating, like, right, I've done my hard work.
Bang. Yeah.
And that's the issue, because the beers back then were so poor, you felt like you were punishing yourself. Whereas now they are so good. Yeah. Like, I think some people might go, you know what? I've actually really enjoyed a lot of these beer selections. I could see myself doing this and carrying on, but I don't think 4 weeks is enough.
Is enough. Yeah.
You know, in your line of work and the people you've dealt with, I would probably say when people ask how long until you see the benefits, I'd probably say somewhere towards 90 days.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, when it's at the severe end, minimum of 90 days. And I had something called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which was really brutal. It kind of meant I was getting like withdrawal symptoms up to, you know, it was beyond 3 months. I was sort of getting like little tremors and shakes. It was really, really weird. Like, I couldn't even have a coffee. I was like, and then suddenly, I don't know if you've heard of the pink cloud. It's sort of like where it flips, and it's never really left me. I mean, I've obviously had hard days in recovery because life can be hard, but that sort of internal sort of fire that everything's going to work out, that positivity has never really been extinguished from that moment. Slightly controversial question. But do you think the UK has an alcohol problem that they're in denial about?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
I don't want to demonize alcohol. I get it. Some people can live with moderation. And, you know, very successful people, again, it's how they define success. But let's just say they're good stand-up parents. They've got a lovely family. They've got a good job, nice house. They look after the kids. They do all the activities, etc. And, you know, they're in great shape. You know, that, to me, if they're still drinking and finding a way to have that good time, then they would think they've cracked it. But then there's also the element of, okay, well, they're the good days. If you look at it as a broad spectrum, that's great. You know, you're showing up, you're in good shape. But what about those days when you're hungover and, you know, the last thing you want is your kid jumping on your lap? The last thing you want to do is go kick a ball with your kid and stuff. And it's that kind of thing of, okay, well, how much value are you putting on this drink to then lose relationships, to lose, you know, small moments with your kids. It might not be all the time, but it might just be those little tiny moments. It might be that you've drank the night before and then you've hopped in your car. Okay, well, your livelihood, let's say your job, is it worth risking your job just to have a few drinks that night before? Because we've all done it. We've all hopped in the car the day after drinking. So all of this, I think, okay, people think they've nailed it. They go, oh, fun. You can't have fun, blah, 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 because booze, it's all about, losing your inhibitions and having a good time. And I get that. And I do think it would be amazing if I could find that balance, but I couldn't. If I was to have a sip now and carry on the way I was, it would just be back to square one. It would be the binge drinking, the binge eating. It would be the emotional eating that came along with it, the complications with my wife. I just wouldn't want to open up that box. So I just feel people put so much power on alcohol. And I do think Britain especially... Look at Brits abroad. Look at these TV shows there used to be, where British people. I mean, the Spanish are trying to ban us from coming in because we are.
Yeah, exactly.
They are.
Go away. Well, we don't want you here.
It's weird though, because if you think about it, they're like, we don't want you coming here, even though we're like, but we're spending all our money. If it weren't for us, you wouldn't be around. It's like, okay, well, what if we could find a healthy balance where you could still go have some, have nice, meaningful moments, but drink, alcohol-free options or whatever. Because I've had some holidays sober. Yeah. I've had the most beautiful time.
Oh my God, I love sober holidays.
I've seen it completely different. Yeah. I mean, I went to New York, and I'll be honest, people are like, what did you do? I went, yeah, I saw the Empire. Empire State, wasn't that bothered. Yeah, I went to Central Park. I couldn't be asked. There's all these sort of moments, but all I remember, and my photo reel is just beers. It's just us in Irish bars, us in dive bars, whatever.
That was what I would do.
So I put so much value on that. And if I could, I don't want to regret the times, at the end of the day, it led me to where I am now. But I do think Brits especially put so much power on this liquid, on this experience. When you actually look at it and you think, okay, well, what is it you're after? Okay, I want to let loose. I want to have a bit of fun. I look at when I used to let loose and have a bit of fun, I was a nightmare. Not so much. I was a good drunk. I was happy. I wanted people to like me. But if you said to me, okay, well, would you be mates right now, sober you, and drunk you walk through the door, doing what you used to do, being quite obnoxious, quite loud, and think, basically, I wanted people to look at me. I was like, it probably stems from being in a big family that, you know what I mean? It's like that means to be seen. And so, but if I was sober and I saw drunk me come through the door, I'd be like, what on earth? Who is this guy? Why is he all up in my face? Or, what's he doing? So therefore, it's that realization, I wouldn't be friends with drunk me, so why am I hanging around with him?
That's so true. I completely concur as well about the whole kind of, holiday thing. I used to go to New York quite a bit at one point in my life, and I would get so incredibly drunk on the American Airlines flight, by the time I'd land in JFK. And I was really addicted at the time to different benzos as well. So sort of like Valium and Xanax and, any kind of anti-anxiety meds. And then on top of that, I'd take sleeping tablets as well. So, I'd literally wake up in JFK, like basically I've blacked out the entire flight. And then I'd look down and I've got all this like duty-free shopping. I've got no recollection of buying. And I remember turning around to, the air hostess and being like, can I ask you a question? Did I buy all this? She's like, oh, yes, sir. And I'm like, did I eat the food? And like, oh, yeah, you enjoyed your food. Oh, you're so funny. We had a long chat. And I'm thinking, I can't remember any of this. And obviously just having the sorest head. And you think, what a way to start a vacation.
It does like give you anxiety. I mean? It's like, okay, you don't remember that. So it's like, what did I say?
What did I say and do? And then you're sort of looking over to the person you're sat next to and you're thinking, oh my God, But yeah, absolutely. And all my photos were the same. And now my holidays are so different. I remember getting a really big craving in early recovery. And being quite worried that it could lead to relapse. And I was actually out in South Africa and it obviously didn't happen. And I remember the next morning I went out on safari and I saw the sun come up. And it honestly was like the Lion King. It was like, Cabenyo! And this gratitude that I didn't pick up a drink the night before and that I was actually going on this safari to see all these animals.
And you'll remember it.
I'll remember it. And had I had a drink the day before, I'd still be drinking and I would have passed out somewhat. And even if I'd have made it, I would have ruined the safari because I'd have been so obviously still drunk. This episode is sponsored by Gavin Sisters, the passionate teetotal founders of the Detox Balm Retreat and the creators of Funky Coffee. If you love the taste of coffee but want to ditch the crash, Funky Coffee is your new go-to. Made from triple certified organic Arabica coffee and infused with powerful mushrooms, it gives you all the energy and none of the jitters. Plus, it's amazing for your gut, skin, and athletic performance. And if you're looking to recharge your body and mind, you've got to check out the Detox Barn. This award-winning retreat located in both the UK and the Algarve is a plant-based, alcohol-free sanctuary where you'll learn how to be healthier, happier, and more balanced. Whether it's for a weekend away or a full restorative retreat, just visit gavinsisters.co.uk and use the code School of Rock Bottom for 10% off your next retreat or a bag of their amazing Funky Coffee. That's School of Rock Bottom for a 10% discount for a healthier, happier you. Go check them out. It's really interesting as well, something you said earlier, because at the beginning we're sort of framing your drinking sort of around heavy binge drinking, which a lot of people are going to relate to. But then you said something interesting, which sounds a bit more like classic alcoholism, which is, if you pick up a drink, that it's going to lead you back to your old patterns. I found that quite interesting.
I would worry, if I did, then it's like, okay, it's that sort of scary. Okay, well, if I let it in, then what else is going to come afterwards? And because a lot of people, when it comes to weight gain and weight loss, etc., and they never really delve into their relationship with food and how it all works really. And that is something I have done as well. And so I was an emotional eater. And that would stem from stress and also just low moods, which can be caused from alcohol. I would, because of the line of work that I would do, I would kind of be left to my own devices, or line of work I did, sorry. So I'd be in the car, and sometimes if I was lucky enough to get a lunch break, well, I could go into Greg's or whatever the equivalent with regards to a bakery, and I could spend my whole calorie allowance in one lunch break, and then I would stuff it in a cup, like coffee cup and whatever. I'd hide it in the bin, and then so in my head I'd be like, oh, I've hardly eaten all I've had is lunch. I'm like, yeah, but do you remember what you've had? So it's that whole, okay, well, alcohol leads to this, that leads to this, that leads to that. So if I was to let the wolf in the door in a way, then I would worry so much about what else comes along. So it's like I would rather just keep that door closed. And I've never even considered, when people go, surely you can have one. I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah, what is
as I said, I much prefer the flavor of beer now. The enjoyment of it is so much more, even though I'm not getting that buzz. But I appreciate the craft that goes into it. Whereas, I would say I had a food addiction as well as a booze addiction.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that if you think, and I know a lot of people with food addiction, whether it be, and I've got friends who've recovered from anorexia that still refer to that as food addiction. You're addicted to food, but addicted in a different way. I've got other friends with bulimia and binge eating disorder and things like that. A lot of them, not all, have had to stop drinking in order to kind of arrest that problem, which for them was the primary problem. And they've said, if I open the door to alcohol, then actually I'm worried that my bulimia will come back. It's quite interesting, isn't it? But it makes sense because all your inhibitions go when you're drinking.
Crave salt. A lot of people, like, again, I wouldn't have it now, but God, a bacon sandwich the day after a heavy session, amazing. A Domino's after a trip at the pub. I remember me and my wife would be in the smoking area of our pub. And she'd be like, "Oh, I've ordered Domino's." I'm like, "Yes!" And I remember it says you get a little ring that says "quality check." We used to order it that much. We came up with a song. We're like, "Quality check," like honestly. So that goes to show.
Wow, I know exactly what you mean. It's on the app, isn't it?
Yeah, little face or whatever robot. With
I can already feel the dopamine going up just on seeing that going around.
Honestly, like a double pepperoni, happy days. So there was that as well. And I think, but regardless of all the weight that I've lost, I still have my moments. I still have my wobbles.
Of course.
It's the first time I've ever been able to see my abs. But then I put on the top the other day, it was a little bit tight. Bearing in mind, I've gone from a double XL to a size small.
Yeah,
and my size small top is tight. It was the one that I did my half marathon in. I looked, I was like, oh God, I'm putting my weight back on. Oh my God, what's going on? And it sent me a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. Because I've gone through years. I mean, talking from being a child on a diet to where I am now. So when people go, what have you done to crack it? It's like, I've been at this for 20 odd years, if not longer. So it's like, I've figured out what works. and obviously when I was a child, it wasn't booze, but it's my relationship with food. And whereas now cutting the booze, that was the problem, but it's still not fixed. I would say there is a form of body dysmorphia there, I can imagine.
Right. Okay. What does the food give you in that moment? You know, that moment in the car where you would eat all your calories at lunch.
Comfort, maybe. It was very much a pressing that fuck it button. It was just a bit like, you know what? Again, I've already had a little bit. What's a little bit more? You know, I'll start on Monday. I would always have in my head like these events. I'd be like, right, it's my brother's wedding. I'll lose weight then. Or I've got this holiday coming up. I'll lose weight then.
Yeah.
I couldn't even lose weight for my own wedding. You know, my own wedding, I was the biggest I've ever been, but we eloped in Nashville. So it was just me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was just me and my wife. So I kind of I felt the pressure was off because we weren't having professional photos, we weren't having professional videos, and no one had to see me in a suit.
Right.
Whereas, so it was just the two of us. So it wasn't about that. It was just a celebration of us. But I do look back now with the photos that we did have, which were just basic photos. I do look back and go, I do not even know that person anymore. It's the happiest day, but an element of me, or part of me just thinks, God, if only.
Right,
So in a way, as I said, once you press that fuck it button, it's what it gives you is just that letting go, like, it's all right. You know, have some food, it'll make you happy, because unfortunately I was trying to fill other holes in a very high stress environment. And you can imagine when I did get that opportunity to fill my boots with food, I would take it.
So that kind of hole, that void that you were talking about stuffing with food sounds like a lot of stress, just managing stress. It's really, really interesting. And do you find that you have to be quite careful around sugar? Would that like sort of trigger you to sort of go on a bit of a sweet binge, or are you okay with sugar?
So in regards to my sort of fitness journey, so having gone, I obviously did Thailand or whatever. So I did that for 4 weeks, and then I stayed out there an extra couple of weeks and ended up losing 21 pounds. Which again, I was very proud of, and I came back and I thought I'd cracked it. I won't lie.
Wow,
I was like,
21 pounds in how long?
In about 4 weeks, really.
Wow, that is amazing.
And it wasn't hard, really. I think the weather helped and the food helps and stuff. And that was a mainly plant-based diet. And again, I wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
So I came back and I honestly thought I was ripped. And so I expected people to go, wow, Henry, look at you. I was like walking into a room like, hey, you seen this? But I'd only scratched the surface, really. But so that was the sort of start of it. But then I got back and I started applying for jobs because, again, I wasn't sure what my purpose was. I would happily just have a job just to keep me going. And my brother was just like, are you sure you really want to work for someone else? You know, do you not want to sort of be your own boss? You're in a position where you could do that. I was like, yeah, but in what? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So then my other brother, again, I'm from a big family. There's 9 siblings, so you can imagine.
Wow.
Yeah, so
you've got 9 siblings.
So going back to that whole being seen, if you know what I mean, it's so again, having done a lot of work and trying to sort of make sense of why it is that I am the way I am with regards to my alcohol and my food, etc. It probably does stem from that as well.
Wow, you're like a dynasty. You're like a tribe.
Yeah.
Wow,
100%. So then what happened? My brother was like, look, I've started this diet thing. I've got this personal trainer. How about you just come along with me? There I was, just sat in my boxes playing FIFA or something, like pretending I was applying for jobs in a way. So we started doing that. It was like a 6-week course. Then I was like, this is cool. I lost a load of weight, another 6 weeks, so on. And that's kind of what happened really with regards to my relationship with food and, you know, going through it all. So it wasn't just a one size fits all. It was like, well, I did this and I did that. I quit the booze, I quit this, and it just So yeah.
It sounds as well in your own sobriety journey that getting a coach was quite a significant moment. So if there's someone listening to this right now that maybe doesn't identify with my story, sort of, you know, hospitals and possible seizures and withdrawal, but definitely is drinking way too much and they're really inspired by your story, what would your sort of first step be, do you think?
I would say definitely open your eyes to these people such as sobriety coaches, etc. Because it's not something, until you go looking for it, it's not something you think that exists. I didn't know it was a thing, because it's a bit like the red car sort of thing, and you see one and then they all pop up sort of thing. And I feel it's very much, if you feel like this has resonated at all, at least open your mind to other, you know, considerations. But if you were to do it yourself, then I would then say the thing I always explain is try and weigh up your pros and cons. So if you have had a heavy session, wake up the next day if you can be bothered, and write down how you feel, how that's made you feel. And if you can write about the pros of how it made you feel the night before, oh, it was good, I had a good laugh with my friends, blah, 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 and just see how it weighs up. If the cons are outweighing the pros, then you might have a problem, and then you can delve further into it. But there's so much support out there. There's certain fantastic charities, etc. But you can only do it once you're ready. You can't rely on someone else to sort of fix it for you. The amount of people that approach me and say, "What did you do? How can you help?" And I give them all the tools, but it's leading to the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink.
So true. Something's got to happen. Sometimes in recovery circles, we call it the inner snap. Something just goes inside. We're like, do you know what? I'm done with this. I need to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
Henry, thank you so much for coming down today, mate. The last hour has absolutely flown by.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Thank you for traveling all the way from. Well, I say all the way. I'm sure it's not that far.
Do you know what?
I mean, how long is it on the train?
To be fair, I think it's like 2 hours.
It's not too bad, is it?
It's not. I mean, it's not even daft prices. I got like off peak. Seriously, it was a pleasure, and it just means I get to come to London, and they've got so much amazing choices with regards to food and stuff. Like whole vegan's just not a thing really. So here I'm like, I can't wait to go and get some lunch.
Yeah, go check it out.
I'm gonna go to Greg's and eat my whole daily allowance.
Henry, once again, mate, huge thanks for today. Hope we stay in touch.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Guys, go to the show notes right now. You're going to find where to follow Henry, all the amazing things that he's up to. Go there now. If you're listening to this on Spotify, give us 5 stars, write a review, really helps. Same on Apple, apparently helps that old algorithm. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe. It really, really helps me make more. And I've always promised, and I've not let you down yet, I will be back in 2 weeks' time with a brand new episode. Until then, look after yourself, and thanks for watching or listening.